Dear friends, glad to meet you all on Feygin Live. This is Tuesday, July 5th, 10 p.m., 1 minute past 10 Kiev time. We're doing a usual stream with Olexiy Arestovych, day 132. Glad to meet you, Olexiy. Good evening. We have over 90,000 people watching us live, and over 14,000 of them left their likes. I have a huge ask to all the viewers: please share the links to this stream in your social media. You know, I'm usually asking about that. And of course, subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych channel, and to the privateer station if you are listening to that in English. Everything is in the description below. Alright, without further ado, let's do the usual run over the map to see what was happening during the last 24 hours. Alright, on Kharkov direction, they have slowed down a bit. They're not advancing. They're shelling us with artillery a lot, but they're not really moving on the ground. They're trying to move, but it doesn't quite work for them, so they probably will regroup and will try to get some resupply, restocking, maybe a rotation. On his Zoom side, everything is pretty sad. There was a small movement, not even tactical level, just some minor activities. If you look at M3, going to the left from it, that's the only place where they advanced a little, is in that forest to the left of that road to down south M3. And let's go to the favorite direction, and about taking all Lugansk region under their control. Bilogorovka is still not taken. So, no, it's not taken. On the map it shows it's taken. No, it is not. And the question: how do they treat in Kremlin when Minister of Defense is lying to President? Let's say he's lying to the public. He's lying to the camera, and then he probably turns back to President and says, "Oh, President, we have issues, we have things." And President may be considerate of that. Alright, so one can lie publicly. Yes, for Kremlin, public lies is normal. That's allowed. Okay, continue forward. They became a little more animated. Actually, I need to say a little more about Svetlodarsk road. They're trying to move towards Bakhmut. But so far, they did not succeed. There was no advancement, no success with that. They tried to cut the road from Avdiivka to Konstantinovka. They're trying to move and using artillery and, of course, forcing the infantry to take that, but it's a bad tactic. So they can't really go far. On Zaporozhye, we are actually moving forward. They are trying to regroup and to dig in. And they're throwing minimal resources they have. Some, not even a detachment of worth mentioning, just some random set of vehicles and armor. On Kherson direction, there is a lot of fighting, a lot of artillery fighting. They're trying to stop the advancement of our troops. So we still advance from Kryvyi Rog towards down south. And they're trying to move some of their troops there to prevent our advancement. So they gauge your counteroffensive as a high probability in Kherson. There's no official full counteroffensive. It's more of a very tactical, very light tactical level that succeeds. And the fun part about them, that they actually take withdraw troops from Zaporozhye, which is another active direction, and they take them from there and throw them to Kherson. That means that there are still no reserves coming from Russian Federation. We can only see the movement of troops from one front to another, which is a sad story for the advancing army. Actually, Russian army cannot even be called advancing now. But at least for the side that thinks that they may be advancing and is trying to mimic everything to that worldview. Refreshments, restocking, new troops are not really arriving in that direction. And that pause in warfighting tempo, that's a precursor of some serious bad things that may happen to the army, where they will be disconnected from supply lines and they'll have to somehow manage. Let me see how far is between Kherson and Zaporozhye. That's where they move some of the groups. In kilometers, it's about 313 kilometers. So the movement is usually on the roads. So what could even a civilian say about the condition of military assets when one needs to move them 300 kilometers to support something else? In a good tempo, it's 4.5 hours, right? No, that's not the question. It is a very different operational direction. And if you're throwing troops on such distances, it's a sign of a very difficult position with personnel. With personnel? Yeah, personnel and also equipment, of course, but personnel is the driver. 313 back in the times of Second World War, that would be basically from front to another front. You're saying that over 60% were concentrated in Severodonetsk, so maybe that what causes them to regroup like this here? Or do you think that resupply from Crimea, resupply of troops and munitions is more difficult from the south? No, I don't think it is. I think they will try to collect some reserves, but even if they had a good source, that would not be easy. One could say that they've been at the peak of their battle worthiness about 3 weeks ago, and unless they announce full-scale mobilization draft in Russia, there is no way for them to win that fight. They recently uncorked the last asset they had unused, that division from Sakhalin Island, way out near Japan on the Pacific Ocean. And they're throwing troops between different directions, even in the areas that are a priority. Same thing is happening in Izum and Bakhmut area. And remember when Putin said, let's give some respite to the troops, that's when they started attacking, without any respite. And they were trying to gain certain positions, but it hasn't worked yet. So we discussed that. Upon taking Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, do you think they'll continue the advancement, or they'll take a pause? Oh yeah, they tried. Of course they will continue. They actually tried to steamroll into the villages that we left there, and it didn't quite work out for them, because we tracked them and we shelled them with our artillery, which is pretty accurate, so that operation suffocated and was snuffed pretty quickly. So, and another thing, we're also waiting them to get to Slavyansk and Kramatorsk defense line. We're waiting for them. So in general, that pretty much it. That thing covers most of things happening on the front. Yes. There are over 300,000 people watching us live. Thank you those who just joined us. Again, please share the stream and also leave your like. Now, Olexiy, the other observation I see is that there is a lot of artillery fighting happening. And what I'm reading is that the intensity of Ukraine fighting has significantly advanced. Can that be related to the new tempo that you're getting, to new supplies, new armor, new weapons, and slow, bit by bit, the balance is shifting? This is not balance yet, Mark. This is indeed the shift of intensity in our favor. And we started using our troops more intensively. So why were you shy before? We were crying over each shell, Mark. We did not have enough. The ratio was maybe 2,000 shells sent in our direction from Russia and only 100 of ours. So how many does one need? 2,000 per day. That's a lot, and that's one division, right? So division is 18 guns. And just one day, for example, in the area between Izum and Popasny, they used about 45,000 shells in a day. It's about 20 divisions. Not all of them are shooting, some of them are in reserve. Others need to undergo some repairs, but at least they have about 500, 600 guns there with the size of 152 millimeters. So that all is shooting. And it kept shooting and shooting and shooting and couldn't even move our troops. And out of 45,000, our side returned maybe 1,000, maybe 2 max. But that changed now. Because how much is Ukraine shooting now? I cannot give you exact data, but let's walk through the open source. First of all, warehouses, command outposts, personnel, aggregation areas, repair bases started to explode. And I don't even know what to compare that with, but they like to say it's the northern wind blowing. We have a northwestern wind blowing, a very strong one. Second, we got some ammo. We don't need to be severe economy mode. And they're western shells, right? Yes. Look what army did the Putin's regime build. They brought, let's say, there was weight very seriously in their favor. Then somebody put a little nut on the other side and it went in flux trying to find a balance. Take any other army in the world, Israel, American, imagine they're using 1,300 guns on their side, and then their enemy got maybe 200 to another 300 they had before, so like 500 versus 1,300. What would it change? Not much. Because the system as an orchestra, it's a complex system that's supposed to work. It would only marginally move the balance. But in case of Russian army, these things change situation dramatically. It is a very painful hit, and it affects their capacity to lead the operations. And that is done by what? 4 HIMARS? Is it more than 4 or just 4? 4. Officially it's just 4. Imagine there would be 100 or 40. What if there would be 100? So where did Putin's regime put their money ever since the Georgian war? Those $1 billion of Russian taxpayers to build what? So that 10 HIMARS would change the front? Wait, let's stop here. So several dozen HIMARS, let's say 50, 60 of them. Mark, 50 or 60 HIMARS would be working on Ural Mountains if we had that resource in a while. If 4 or 5 brought such a drastic change to the front. We're just clarifying because they need to understand that they will get there. Maybe a little less, maybe more, but Mark, M270, is double package of HIMARS, and they're not even here yet. They're coming, but they'll get there. And ammo and everything else, will you have enough? Are they going to be supplied in the proper quantities? Of course. What would be we using otherwise? Alright. We clarified that. They'll listen to it and they'll feel skittish. I think they'll feel skittish much later. It actually will be very, very sad. They'll probably fall into grief. And we every day are telling them, stop the war, withdraw the troops. How else can we explain to them? Well, if they don't understand that, we'll have to show it on the front. So today in a town Klincy, where the 144th Heroic Division in Bryansk region, this is a very characteristic division that is at the same time directed towards Ukraine and Belarus. It's not the point. There, three unknown people attacked the quarters of that military detachment. Just like in the movie that you remember, yeah, there were 6 of them wearing black costumes, black masks on white horses. Enough of those white horses. So, yeah, apparently those 3 people, one wore black, another wore red. So, in the dresses of right sector back from the way back when in Ukraine. So that's all in the real data? Yeah, that is in real official reporting from that city, that 3 people in masks opened fire and attacked that the quarters of that detachment. So, perhaps it's a full-fledged partisan movement there. And they all did that in Bryansk region, right? 3 of them. Impressive, impressive. Alright, we have 350,000 watching us. Yeah, right, everybody is looking for those guys. Okay, let's approach it from a different direction. Is there a map of supplies and armaments to Ukraine? We do have that mark, of course, but we cannot disclose details. Today, Brits announced happily that they will send us 10 more howitzers, self-propelled howitzers, which is about 2 brigade worth of equipment. Usual brigade has maybe 6, so that's 2 brigades. That's a very serious battle unit. Alright. So, the main kind of these equipment, of these weapons, HIMARS, self-propelled howitzers, are they generally being sent to the east, to the eastern direction, or they're being shared between other directions? So HIMARS are maneuvering. Looking at the statements by our central command, it looks like they got somewhere, shot at the target, and continued elsewhere. And HIMARS have a capability to move for several days, which apparently they're using a lot. But we also have anti-air defense increasing. Dnieper was being attacked by 7 missiles, we shot 6. Nikolaev was going to get hit by 3 missiles, they shot down all 3 of them. Is that all Ukraine anti-air system? Yeah, with some support of the West, but yeah. And if I can say, all that is not an accident that we are that effective. What do you mean? You got some Western support? Not exactly, but you know, if you have certain data when and what will be flying, you can shoot it down. Quantity-wise, is it possible to cover all the cities? We are talking about Kharkiv, and they are asking about, can you close the sky over Kharkiv? Yeah, we did talk about that, but Kharkiv is a different situation. Kharkov is being attacked for the most part by field artillery. That's impossible to intercept. And we do have anti-air defense there. If we didn't, they would be flying their jets over it. So one needs to understand that Russia is using their MLRS systems from Russian territory. They're using Iskander missiles from Russian Federation. And they're also using field artillery. How far are they from the border? Those Iskanders and the rest? Very close, almost on the border. So yeah, the launch is very quick. It's under 40 seconds to hit the target. The problem is that air defense with anti-missile components can shoot down Iskanders, can shoot down missiles like Caliber, cruise missiles if they're flying. But shooting down MLRS, that's a whole other target. Nobody is doing that. Do Israeli do that? They have Iron Dome, yes. But Iron Dome is a very niche weapon. Tell us what it does. It intercepts dumb missiles, it calculates their trajectories and shoots their own missiles at them. It is very effective, but it's very niche. Because in Israel, they have a complex system of anti-missile and other kinds of defense, and the crown jewel of that is the Iron Dome. And Sector Gaza is a very small area, so they kind of know where the missiles will be flying from, where even those Qassam's handmade MRS systems will be shot from. In our case, we have issues. We have a very long front. When Kharkov is contacting enemy from about 3/4 of its surrounding territory, it is nearly impossible to protect that. It would have been nice if we were such a rich country who could have purchased 5 of these systems to cover Kharkov from each and every direction, but unfortunately we cannot yet. But still it means that Ukrainian anti-air defense is protecting Kharkov, right? Yes, they are pretty active and they shoot down cruise missiles. Recently, about 4 days ago, there were 5 or 6 launches, only 2 or 3 reached the target. There's a lot of data every day, so roughly they shot about half of it. So they're shelling Kharkov with MLRS, right? You can shoot them down, and there is even an exercise with anti-air defense systems that manage to shoot down certain type of munitions. Problem is that the missile that shoots that one down costs over 50 times more than the one that is being shot down. Even not a single army in the world is doing that. Even American army is not doing that, who technically has the printing press for dollars. So, what can you do? Do you track the launch position and then take it out? We work on everything. We work on the field artillery, we work on MLRS. We cannot work on the Russian territory. There they just smoke in wrong places. Can we make them smoke more often? Yes, but it is not easy. Because sometimes they're smoking in cities, in populated areas, next to civilians, masking themselves properly. So this creates a very non-trivial military task in itself for us to ensure they smoke in the wrong place at the right time. Alright, we have about 385,000 watching us. We've been 24 minutes live. reminding our viewers to share links to that cast in their social media. And those who did not listen to my magic voice with calls for subscriptions, here I am. Subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and do subscribe to the Privateer station if you are watching that in English and like to continue doing so. Here's another news. 4 cruise missiles shot from the Black Sea, 3 were shot down by air defense systems. Here's a point I want to make. Whenever Arestovych is looking down at his phone, he is not browsing memes, he is actually looking up the data. He is basically getting fresh news and commenting them as they happen. Well, sometimes I do watch memes, look up some memes here, but yeah, you're right. In general, that's news. Yes, because we generally try to reflect the freshest and most confirmed data. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to filter what's happening, because that stream is non-stop. There's another story I want to talk about. You've heard about that. With Shkribets. He lived in Ukraine. He had a wife, a son, stayed there, said Crimea is ours, and then his son dies this spring on the cruiser Moscow. That guy is a usual parent of the soldier who died during the war. He is trying to hit every possible bureaucracy in Russia, trying to get a document stating that his son died on a ship Moscow, on a cruiser Moscow during the military operation. Eventually, there is a whole fight of him and the bureaucracy, and finally he gets 7 million rubles, and he was happy there for a moment, not so happy about the loss of his son, but at least he achieved the goal of reimbursement. And then the next piece of news was that his wife took that money and left him. So now it's another comic piece of news that he kind of left everything, crossed the border, and joined the Legion of Russia in Ukraine. Can you support that? Can you tell us if that news is real? Well, I will have a chance to check tomorrow. This news sounds fishy, but I'll have a chance to look into that. I just wanted to bring it up on the radar because it's a very classic story. Ukrainian cheering Russia takeover of Crimea, losing his son over that eventually, and finally manages to get some compensation from Russian government, and then loses it again, and then leaves Crimea. So he almost goes through all those stages of grief, right? Acceptance, rejection, anger, fear. Yeah. So I checked a friend right now as we were talking, and he texted back, said the request was not received in that name to join Legion of Russia. And I was thinking, yeah, that could be more of a meme story, but that is just one person, and the weird enough that a good half of Russia is staying in that Z letter condition. You know, when they're screaming that Russia is zombified, Russia is sleeping, and seeing 80% voting for Putin, and it's useless to even try to sway the pendulum in a different direction. I always remember people like the father of that sailor, because eventually life changes things. Even somebody who was wrong for a long time, regardless of how strong the emitter is, you cannot make the father of a dead son believe that everything is alright, regardless how many FSB agents will come visit him daily and tell him that he still needs to support Putin. At some point, he will cross the border and join the Legion, or perhaps attack that military detachment quarters in the city we talked about before. Or, you know, those 19 rail carts that got derailed. And that's how it happens. By drop, by stream, by a little river, and eventually there'll be a roaring waterfall. So we'll call it effect of Shkrivets. That's a good name for it. But I don't think he's the only man whom that is happening to. What I'm thinking is, if he will get to Ukraine, and perhaps there'll be a time where he will be checked, cross-checked, verified, we would be glad to provide that story to the Crimean populace, because that actually gives them another opportunity to see life, because they can stay there and do nothing, they can flee to Russia, or, you know, there is that more of a unique approach. But anyway, regarding that story, please keep us informed. Another question, maybe you can talk more about that. I talked about that before. I don't think Arestovych can answer all the questions, but right now we got a data that in Ukraine you have to visit conscription point. Every male of the conscription age needs to go there and verify that his standing is proper with the army and that you cannot leave the territory. You know what Churchill said? War is too serious to trust it to only military. Our president already stated that General Command should not be making decisions like that without my participation. So he delicately nudged the command about that statement, that initiative. In their defense, one can say that this norm actually exists in Ukrainian law, and they just basically invoked it. In case of a big war, that's what you can do. Problem is that since the beginning of war, situation has changed drastically, and there were several attempts to communicate these details. Unfortunately, none of them was successful to communicate that to society. And Ukraine is a free country. One should not be pushing and forcing people to do things here. You need to explain, not push. People are smart here. They need to understand. They don't need to be coerced. And measures that lead to destruction of social and economic structures will not be popular. One should not be practicing the method of conscription by an approach that will be destroying the economy and other relations in the country. So tomorrow President will likely take care of that. And they actually did everything proper and honestly according to the law of Ukraine. The problem is that it is not the right communication format, perhaps not the right time, and I think President put a dot in that argument. Very well. Well, we asked the questions, so this probably will disarm some of the Russian propagandists saying that in Ukraine it's all forced. 415,000 watching us. Let me bring up another question that is connected to the work of Yermak. Minister of Foreign Affairs in conservative side of British Parliament said that confiscation goes pretty difficult in Britain. Canada adopted that and used it. The United States have some qualms using it to a degree, but not entirely. Britain said that we are the initiator, we are the instigator, so we will continue. And the war was going on for at least 4 and something months. So right now we need to, and right now we need to define some steps forward, because discussing of the reparations and other things forward without making that decision will not really help anyone. That confiscation part will basically have enough money to sustain 5 Ukraines. The United States has some of that money, Europe probably has way more. So, do you know what's happening, what is being undertaken there? Mark, we just need to not forget that subject, we continue pushing it through. It has a very wide range of effects. It's from certain export issues to personal and individual figures. There is another problem which is pretty big, and we mentioned that before. But the West, first of all, is worried about personal property and turning on something like that with confiscation and stuff. It is not so easy. We are making an effort to help them get there, and we need to highlight that all that is being taken due to the extraordinary circumstances of the actual hot war going on. And, you know, this is a whole endless guesstimating game of how much does certain element cost, certain yacht costs from an oligarch. So what used to work before better doesn't really need to be that precise now. Well, problem is, Mark, that it's all democracies on the West. It's the democracies that take decisions collegiately. It takes a while to adopt things. Today there was a good example. President of Switzerland did mention that we are tracking these monies, but we need to verify that the money we're tracking has a direct link to war, and it does take time. So this is another interesting aspect, because all these questions about how much of the certain yacht is related to the war efforts of an oligarch. War makes things more rough. Whatever was more civil before probably shouldn't be that delicate now. Yes and no, Mark, because at the same time Switzerland has the reputation of a safe haven for money. And it's not just Switzerland, it's the other countries that also respect private property, so it takes time to verify and triple verify it. And, you know, the 7th package of sanctions is more harsh, but it's been discussed for about a month already, and they're going towards a certain approved version of it. It's the soft pressure, the soft push, similar to what Yermak McFall Commission is exercising on the world. And in Russia, once these things are taken, they'll be screaming, why are you taking our money? You're sending it to restore Ukraine. This is against the law. And the whole world is smiling and saying, and this is the feedback to Russia whenever they take that nuclear bat and start shaking it and saying that we'll reach La Manche and we'll take over the world. There'll be some consequences to that. Another thing is Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader who refused to visit Russia. Press service of Kremlin reacted to that. They usually react only to things that actually exist, unless they're lying to everybody. But this is an externality they reacted to, so perhaps that indeed happened. China has a long history, ages of development and history and traditions. Perhaps they're not too keen on going and visiting the butcher who still has blood on his hands from Irpin, from Bucha and other places. So, and yeah, that's what is going around. That he was invited to visit Moscow, but he refused. There is a lot of discussion going on as to how trustworthy that piece of news is, but Putin would definitely be happy if he could have hosted him, because he could underline that there is no blockade, that big leaders can still visit us, that Russia is still open. Well, Xi Jinping already stated his position that China does not need the war, they need peace. And essentially for China, it's not a change of their stance, it's just following in their soft posture. But for Putin, it's indeed painful to realize that, maybe they will realize that there are smallpox barrack that nobody wants to visit. They even visited Moscow, people even visited Khabarovsk. Patrushev was in Khabarovsk today, and they said that some hotshots are even planning to take Kuril Island from Russia. So you know what, they're trying to look for enemies everywhere. That reminds me of the coalition against Hitler, which was 54 countries, if memory serves me right. Putin already has 51 countries against him. Adding Sweden and Finland to NATO today, that was a big step. There was so much propaganda play in Russia against it. Turkey was resisting, but things can be solved. Behind the curtain they can find an agreement and make certain steps. And Moscow is merely but an influencer of these things in Europe. And if they continue imagining that their posturing and threatening will have a very big effect on the West, they shouldn't. They shouldn't hope for that. That is not how to work with West effectively. We've been live for about 42 minutes. Let's leave something for tomorrow. Of course, Mark. Tomorrow we have another cast at 10 p.m. Kiev. We'll talk about our continuing charity project at the end of the show tomorrow. I also have a big request for those 400,000 plus watching us. Please share links to that stream on your social media. That is very important. And of course, subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station. And leave your like. More details under the video in the description. Thank you, Olexiy Arestovych. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, viewers. See you.